all segments, including supply to OEMs, exports, as well as the aftermarket. Exports grew by 8.6% to US $10.1 billion, while imports also grew by 17.2% to the same number of 10.1 billion. The aftermarket, estimated at 42,000 crores, also witnessed a growth of 8%. Component sales to OEMs in the domestic market grew by 46% to 2.23 lakh crores. I'd like to highlight a few transformations that have been going on for furthering the industry to greater heights. First and foremost, the rapid use of digitization is now a way of life for every business, big or small, as it helps to improve operations, streamline their processes, reduce costs, and facilitate transactions between buyers and sellers, thereby receiving a wider customer base. The emergence of new financing models like the Open Credit Enablement Network and the Open Network for Digital Commerce, etc. will open more avenues for MSMEs to reach newer customers, as also seen through the GEM portal and other similar networks. This is likely to open up significant partnerships between lenders and solution providers to assist SMEs in their daily operations. As per MSME Business Confidence study, about 2/3 of MSME owners surveyed plan to include sustainable business practices in 2023. Amongst the top initiatives that the industry will carry forward are not using plastic, followed by the use of renewable energy and undertaking green initiatives like reducing carbon emissions and tree plantation. At the same time, our industry also faces a host of factors that are challenging the growth momentum of the Indian automotive industry, like the new environmental and safety regulations, fuel price hikes, liquidity crunch, amongst others. In fact, one of the most crucial issues that the automobile manufacturers are currently facing is the global shortage of semiconductors. Moreover, the higher interest rates emanating from the stringent monetary tightening and major central banks, supply chain problems due to the continued war in Ukraine and recessionary fears, particularly in the advanced economies, are amongst the major challenges for the global automotive industry. These issues aren't expected to be resolved quickly. A growing concern that the year's supply shortages could lead into a demand destruction scenario, just as the auto industry is finally ramping back. Even though the minister is not here, like some of the things that the government has set in place for the MSME sector. Budget allocations, increased budget allocations for net carbon emissions. Customs duty reduction from 21 to 13% on lithium-ion cells, and the extension of subsidies to EV batteries for one more year will be a major demand booster. With green mobility identified as one of the priority areas, manufacturing and adoption of alternative fuel vehicles, including EVs, have also received impetus. Doubling of the outlay of FAME 2 and the allocation of 24. The new credit guarantee scheme with enhanced corpus is expected to also lower cost of credit. The introduction of Vivad Se Vishwas scheme in the budget 23 also brings a ray of hope for MSMEs, as it promises to return 95% of the forfeited amount relating to bid or performance security in case of failure by MSMEs to execute contracts. Also, the upscaling of the MSME competitive scheme is expected to make this sector more competitive. There were a few points that we should make when the minister is here regarding uniform GST and R&D benefits, but let's do that when the minister is here. In addition, we today have, I know there are challenges around being able to access collateral-free loans, and I know we have a separate panel discussion today on the subject titled Reinforcing Financial Confidence to address this issue. Amid the ongoing electrification transition, OEMs are expected to incur significant investments in the development of ground-up electric vehicle platforms and enhanced manufacturing capabilities. The recent discovery of lithium reserves located in Jammu and Kashmir has come as a silver lining for the evolution of the EV industry, which is otherwise majorly banking on China for these resources. On the outlook for the automotive industry, we expect growth across the automotive industry segments to remain at high single-digit levels in 2024. While the passenger vehicle, commercial vehicle and tractor segment volumes will continue to trend upwards, aided by favorable demand drivers, the two-wheeler industry is also expected to record moderate growth in the volume. Without taking much time, I'd like to extend my hearty welcome once again to our dignitaries on the dais and the speakers and the participants of the day.
Happening in the backdrop of a huge transformation that India is witnessing. We're privileged to live in these times where the socio-economic change that our country is going through is indeed unprecedented. Having scaled the 5th position in global GDP, becoming world number 2 in internet penetration, a global leader in electronic financial transactions, and one of the most vibrant markets fueled by the aspirational spirit of our youth, there is no denying that India's time has come and India is truly shining. At the outset, I would also like to place on record our appreciation for the recent initiatives taken by the Government of India to support MSMEs, such as the Make in India program, the Startup India initiative, and the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. In addition, I would like to specifically acknowledge the MSME Competitive Scheme under the MSME Champion Scheme. This scheme aims to enhance productivity and competitiveness of MSMEs by providing them with technical and financial assistance to implement lean manufacturing techniques. By adopting these techniques, SMEs can reduce waste, they can improve quality, as well as increase efficiency, ultimately leading to cost savings and higher profits. At this juncture, let me introduce you briefly to the automotive industry. ACMA represents over 800 automotive component manufacturers today, with over 65% of them in the small and medium enterprise category. Therefore, the well-being of the MSME is extremely critical to the well-being of the automotive industry as a whole. The combined turnover of the automotive industry stood at $56.5 billion in FY 2022, growing at 23%, with one of the highest ever exports we had at $19 billion. This despite the significant challenges that we encountered due to the pandemic on the front of supply chain, including market uncertainties. Now, with vehicle sales increasing month on month, our turnover stands at $33 billion in the first half of the current fiscal year, which is a 34% growth from the last fiscal year. Our exports continue to be robust, with over 30% of our turnover being exports, mostly from the US and the EU, and we are confident that this will continue to grow by 10 to 15% when we close the fiscal year FY23. Today, the automotive industry is clearly at an inflection point. The industry of sustainable development, driven by the need to reduce carbon footprint as we also meet the challenges of the environment and climate change. The situation in our country is not very different. Most progressive governments around the world have adapted to carbon neutrality very rapidly. In our country, the government has announced net zero by 2070, and this is also amply reflected in the theme of the G20 under India's presidency. And as a responsible stakeholder, the automotive industry and the component industry will indeed shoulder their responsibility well by transitioning to zero-emission products such as EVs and business models that are sustainable, aligned to the circular economy, and have minimal adverse impact on the environment. Speaking of transformation in the automotive industry, whilst OEMs and the Tier 1s are somewhat ready, the MSMEs, which include Tier 2 and Tier 3s, do require significant handholding. While some of the key challenges being faced by MSMEs are akin to those of large enterprises, considering the relatively smaller size of the MSMEs, these issues become more pronounced and acute, be they the access of capital or access to technology, or hiring the right talent and retaining them, or engaging with stakeholders to ensure that they have an efficient and streamlined value chain. In an industry where margins are constantly under pressure due to increasing input costs on one hand and demand of the customer to continually lower prices on the other, the only way to hold the head above water is to focus on value addition by indulging in new technologies and by focusing on new product development, by developing newer and improved processes for safety and emissions, as also for transforming to the mobility industry. It is therefore imminent that the SMEs also transform to stay relevant, and hence the theme of our summit today is bracing up for transformation, opportunities and challenges for SMEs. I am sure our eminent speakers today will enlighten us on how to adapt ourselves to the changing needs of our customers to stay relevant. ACMA is committed to ensure that we have a strong Tier 2 and Tier 3 support system to the Tier 1 suppliers. We have launched several new cluster programs through our pillar on skilling and mentorship, including a dedicated program for SMEs, which is highly subsidized by UNIDO and the Ministry of Heavy Industries. Further, the ACMA Center of Excellence at the IIT Delhi campus in Sonipat is replete with a lab on mechatronics and Industry 4.0, and another on design with state-of-the-art software and 3D scanners. I urge our SMEs and members to make good use of the offerings for their benefit. Before I close, I want to just talk about one very distinct example of an OEM that I spoke with not too far ago, not very recently. Daimler. The CEO of Daimler spoke to me about their India plan. He said this to me: there are 800,000 vehicles that they sell in China. There are 200,000 vehicles that they sell in North America, 200,000 vehicles that they sell in Germany, and about 300,000 vehicles that they sell in all of Europe, and only 15,000 in India. Given the recent threat with Russia and Ukraine, given the impact of that war and what that could result in with China and Taiwan, the German company, Daimler, is seriously looking at moving a lot of production to India and a lot of manufacturing to India. So we look at the China One Plus strategy and we look at what is Tier 1 suppliers. We cannot make a difference unless our Tier 2 and Tier 3 supply chain is readily equipped to meet the demand that is required, not just the local demand, but the kind of exports that we are witnessing today. So the opportunities are great, and the opportunities are here to stay. It's really ours for the taking. It's ours to invest in technology. It's ours to look for joint venture partnerships, for technology alliances, so that we can really enhance our businesses. So I firmly believe that the MSMEs will continue to play an important role and a vital role in our economy, and especially in our industry. And I'm certain that today's conference will be an engaging one and will throw some light on the key challenges confronting our MSMEs and also attempt to offer solutions to such challenges. Every challenge is an opportunity, and I hope we can all take back some great opportunities today. Thank you.
The first time when I took over the chairmanship of the National MSME Council 5 years ago, 4 years ago, something like that. Other than the fact that I heard the word MSME in medium and small, I didn't belong to that sector at all, and therefore I really wanted to know what MSME is all about. And we all were talking about China as we can't beat China on this and we can't beat China on that, and I really wanted to study on seeing what MSME and how MSME grew in China. And from all I really think is that we shouldn't be using the word MSME at all. This is the aspirational sector of India, which is really driving the economy, if you really ask me. 45% of the GDP of manufacturing, 48% of the export. Which other area can you ever think of and lay a finger on to say that this is what is happening? And while I was doing this, I went through a lot of research papers, and one was on growth of MSMEs in China. And I was absolutely floored by the fact that, and I say it because 20-25 years ago, when the world was moving towards greener pasture for low cost manufacturing, they didn't come to India, they didn't go to various other places, they went to China. And in those 15, 20 years of their manufacturing, what really has happened is that 74% of IPRs are filed by MSMEs, and 75% of innovative products come from MSMEs. This is what I think we need to be aiming at. If you really want to see a $5 trillion economy, by the word of mouth, it doesn't work anywhere. But the fact is that we need to be plugged into the global supply chain from where we are to much further than what we would like to even aspire for. So therefore our goals have to be much higher. I'm a believer of the micro industry, the small industry, the medium industry, all as a part of the ecosystem, the larger ecosystem. And I was telling Vikram a story.